Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Traxion podcast, where we discuss racing video games across all genres and for all skill levels. Today, we are going to be talking about the upcoming racing games of 2021 that we're most excited about. I'm Justin, and joining me today is Tom and John.
Hello there.
Hi, guys.
How you doing, Justin?
So, obviously, 2020 was not a great year for video games, for planet Earth, honestly, if we're totally honest. So 2021 has a pretty low bar, and there are a lot of games, a lot of racing games coming out. We're going to talk about several of them. But I mean, it's a tough one. I don't know if we should get our hopes up too much. It was a difficult year last year, and it's looking like 2021 might be under sort of similar circumstances. So, I mean, do you guys think that we should be expecting, the kind of AAA titles that we've gotten in years previous?
That was an awkward pause. I was thinking, there's actually quite a lot of games coming out in 2021, really, but a lot of them we sort of expect, but they've not been fully announced, or they've had like a teaser trailer and there's not gameplay. And I think a lot of them, while they might be penciled in as 2021, could be delayed till 2022. So I feel like there's a lot to get excited about, but who knows when they're actually going to appear.
Right.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same as that, to be honest. I think, obviously, there's always a bit of anticipation, but I think with the whole global pandemic that's going on at the moment, I think everyone's expectations have to be just a little bit calm. And, as much as game developers will try their best to get things out, I think it's just been a tough year for everyone. And you've got to have a little bit of sympathy for everyone involved for that. But yeah, we'll wait and see.
So the main games, let's go ahead and talk about some of the ones that we know for sure are coming out. For example, F1 2021, that's coming out. It's a yearly release. As you mentioned, there's no trailer or anything like that, but it'd be really weird if they didn't come out with an F1 2021. F1 2020 was pretty good. I mean, I didn't play the single player career mode, but I heard it was, the best yet. I saw a lot of YouTube videos and that kind of stuff. Yeah. I mean, do you think we can expect 2021 to be better, the same? I'm not so sure.
It's difficult. I really enjoyed the My Team career of F1 2020. It was a big step forward, a nice innovation. It sort of collated what they've been progressing towards for many years, being able to have a driver market, kind of like a FIFA title where you had driver scores and cards, and then you could actually, at the end of a season, change your teammate from either the F2 drivers or the ones that are existing in F1. After time, if you played many seasons, drivers would retire. You could edit your livery, set your team name, all that good stuff. But for this year, how are you going to top that? It's quite difficult. But it's a very important year for F1 because it's a transitional period between console generations and technology. And also, Codemasters is being purchased by EA. I don't think, from a development point of view, it's too late in the day for that to have any effect. But maybe in 2022, they might have to change to Frostbite engine or something like this. Who knows? But there's big changes behind the scenes. And also, I'd be very interested to see if it's going to be an all-new game from scratch for the new generation, or this year's paddling for time while they work on something bigger for next year.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think F1 2020 raised the bar really well, as you said. And I think that obviously they've got a bit of a reputation at the moment for just bringing out new features each year. And they've really been improving their games well. I think most people can agree that the progression rate since probably about F1 2015, every game has just got slightly better than the one before. They've got more features. And obviously they're setting a bar really high for themselves. But I think, that's a great thing, right? We all love the F1 games and we all want to see new exciting features. But I feel like they're really listening to the fans and doing what we want. I think there was a long time where everyone was really, really hoping to get driver changes, a bit like FIFA, and be able to actually feel like they were in a real kind of F1 career. But obviously, when that came in, a lot of people were thinking, where do they go from here? And then they had the story mode, obviously, with Lucas Weber and Butler, and then of course the My Team mode this year added something new again. So they're definitely on the right trajectory. I wouldn't probably hold it against them if they didn't have any major features this year because of the the recent addition of major features. But what I'd quite like to see is maybe an incorporation of both F1 2019 and 2020's best things. So maybe the My Team from F1 2020, but maybe a little bit of more, I guess, cutscene immersion, and maybe more of a new story for GP2 drivers coming through, or F2 drivers like we had in the previous game. I think a combination of those two things would be quite cool, but we have to wait and see. It's been a tough year again, as I said, so I'm trying to keep my expectations not too high.
Yeah, and I'd love to see some laser scanning on the tracks, but with COVID-19 happening, I don't know how easy or difficult it is for developers of all games, not just F1, to actually get out there and visit these locations around the world. So that's also just a general trend to watch, but it is something I'd like to see in an F1 game.
Yeah, certainly. It would be nice if they could carry over the stuff. But as you kind of alluded to, this is sort of the most important F1 game since 2015, because 2015 was the new gen. It was PS4, Xbox One. It was the brand new generation, brand new graphics, physics, all that kind of stuff. What do you hope for? Well, I'll start with you, Tom. What do you hope for in terms of 2021's like physics and stuff like that? Do you hope for more realism? You mentioned the laser scanning. Do you hope it's more realistic, closer to sim? Because right now it's kind of in that space between sim and arcade.
Yeah. I think it has to remain between, because Formula One is a broad demographic around the world. There'll be lots of people playing with a controller, but also lots of people playing with a wheel. And I feel like the handling balances that very well at the minute. But I would like some more detail in the tracks and the environments. That doesn't necessarily make it a sim, but it makes it more authentic. And I think everyone can benefit from that.
Immersion.
But yeah, exactly. Immersion, yeah. And from the online side, there's still some weirdness with like how the virtual safety car works and stuff like this. I don't know if you've experienced that when you've been commentating online, Justin, but certainly got some oddness there. But if they come out with a game that's more bare bones and completely new, I'll be happy with that. If it's a transitional year and they've added Formula 3 to it instead of all new and waiting for another year, I'd also be relatively happy with that as well.
John?
Yeah, I pretty much agree with most of what you were saying there, Tom. I think it's whatever they do, as long as they do something that's a little bit different and have put a little bit of effort in, I think we're all going to be reasonably happy. The realisms thing, I'm kind of in a similar position. I think it needs to sit somewhere in between. And I do feel like the F1 games have been a little bit tricky on a controller for a few years with certain direction changes and stuff. And obviously that's something that's always going to be an issue with a controller. Like for example, swimming pool chicane on Monaco, it's almost impossible to get through there at a high speed like you can on a wheel. And little things like that are tricky. So if I had to be really nitpicky, I'd like there to be maybe something that just helps that a little bit more. But again, as I say, they've struck a really nice balance where I think sim fans, once they get used to the physics, can really enjoy F1 2020 as it is at the moment. Yeah. But at the same time, you can be a fan of it with a controller. You can play on it. We can have likes of Ian Poulter racing against F1 drivers and not being far off the pace. So, I think they need to stay somewhere in the middle. Obviously, in a dream world, we have a situation where we have two kind of physics engines, where you have the hardcore sim engine and you have the kind of controller-based arcade engine. But that's a big step in the future potentially. But right now, I honestly think they've done a good job. So I think if they keep it where it is and maybe just work a little bit on something like direction changes, that would be amazing.
Yeah, and you guys kind of touched on the esports side as well, which is something that I'm involved in, and I follow a lot of the esports drivers and stuff like that. And these guys complain a lot about the online as well. So I know for sure that's something that the esports community is concerned about. They want better, less lag. They want better connections, all that kind of stuff. But it's such a small thing for the average consumer. The average person is just going in, they're just playing career mode. So I can understand why it's low priority for Codemasters. But at the same time, people are tuning in to see the esports, and that's selling their product. So it's a tough one. I hope that they can improve the online. But at the same time, I understand why career is such a focus for them.
Yeah, you just reminded me of a really big thing that is often complained about or discussed with that game, especially online, is the track limits and how they don't represent them in real life necessarily. They're either too strict or too slack in some areas. So I hope that there's some method where they can improve upon that, because I was watching some of the virtual Grand Prix stuff last year during lockdown. And in one of the races, I think it was China, all the drivers were using this big curb way out wide that they wouldn't do in real life. So there needs to be some refinement there. That would be nice.
Yeah. One thing that I think would be really cool, actually, is if they had the ability at least to turn off the fans at the circuit, because obviously every F1 game is just fans all over the place. But for the new, we can't do that in this day and age.
Right.
Exactly. And I mean that would save system resources as well too. You don't have to animate or render any of those fans or anything like that. So certainly that's something that I would hope for personally. I think
it'd be really cool actually if you made the 2021 version, like even if you had the same game, but just instead of having the normal celebrations of the podium, everyone was wearing masks. We had all that stuff. I think that would be a great addition.
Or those robots, the podium robots that they had last year.
Be a mini game driving those. Yeah.
Quick time action going on.
So another game that's due to come out in 2021, we'll just quickly move away from F1, is, and I'm going to lean on you guys heavily for this one, is MotoGP. I am not, I much prefer 4 wheels over 2. I don't know if you know this, it's a lot more stable. It doesn't fall over when you have 4 wheels, you don't have to worry about falling over. It's fantastic.
Right.
But I have not played I have not played a MotoGP game or a motorcycle game at all since I don't know, NES or something like that. I mean, what is the state of MotoGP games, and what can we even hope for?
In one word, iteration. The MotoGP game released every year, officially licensed and developed by Italian developer Milestone, and they also make several other motorcycle games as well. A few years ago, they were using their own engine. This is on the PlayStation 4, Xbox One generation. But then halfway through that, they switched to Unreal Engine. Had some big teething problems initially. Now they have been solved, and the last game, MotoGP 20, was a very, very solid game, but it lacked a sort of sparkle or innovation to really move it forward. We talked about the F1 My Team. Well, the career mode in MotoGP is a really sort of more old-fashioned career mode where you start from the bottom and rise to the top, but there's not much you can do in terms of team management, really. And likewise, the online, there's no online tournaments or championship rankings or races that rank you against or put you in lobbies with people of the same skill level. All of that is sort of missing. So that's what I really hope for this year.
John?
Yeah.
Any thoughts?
To be honest, I'm similar to you, Justin. I'm leaning more on Tom for this one. I think motorcycle games have got a really good history, and there's lots of different variety. We saw obviously Ride 4 came out in 2020, and that seemed to be a big success. And recently I've not really been doing as much of the motorcycle games, and I think, as you say, it would be good to have something a little bit more immersive and something a little bit fresh, just to change up a wee bit. I don't think they're necessarily bad games. I've played little bits, and I never really complained about the quality of the game, but it just doesn't quite give me that immersion that makes me want to come back and really experience it in the full. So I think there's definitely some work to be done. But as you say, Milestone are producing so many games every year. I think that's something that can be commended. But it's just
cover some of those. And it's a good game, and it looks really good, and it has all the licenses. And what I would say that's extremely positive with the MotoGP games is that it has all the support classes. So F1 has just F2, MotoGP has Moto2, it has Moto3, it has Moto E, which is the electric support series, and it has the Red Bull Juniors, so it has the 4 support classes, all licensed with all the riders. So that's a hell of a lot of work, and that's really good. But it needs more than just quantity to excel. And also, again, we're in this cross-generational period, so it'd be interesting to see if they just do like a halfway house game with shinier graphics this year, or they actually try something all new.
Yeah, and I wonder if these games, F1 and MotoGP specifically, I do wonder if these are going to be available on the previous gen, because I know there's stock issues. It's so hard to get a PS5 and an Xbox Series X right now, so a lot of people who want one and have the money for one can't even get one for a reasonable price anyway. Yeah. I'm sure they could go get one used or whatever, secondhand for $1,000, or 1,000 euros or whatever.
I should really sell mine.
Probably. I'll probably make a nice. Yeah, there you
Actually,
go.
I want to keep it.
That's how badly people want to get one. But I wonder if these companies are going to, because these are supposed to be the next gen games. I mean, it was last year that these next gen consoles came out, but I wonder if there's going to be PS4 and Xbox One versions.
If I was a betting person, and I'm not, I would say that you're correct. I think at the very least they'll be on PS4, Xbox One. It might even be they don't have a full next-gen version, and they rely on sort of the backwards compatibility. So I'm thinking it's different time, different scenario, but when F1 went from the PlayStation 3 era to PlayStation 4, that year's game was only on the old gen. They missed a year. Different times, different people in the team, I'm sure, but that could be a real possibility. It's an interesting point you've raised there.
Yeah, that's a good point as well, Tom. That like it's I think that especially I would keep alluding to it, and I'm sorry, but with everything that's going on, it's just that little bit tougher to get things done and to be able to travel to places you travel. Times for everything, production time is limited, and it's just a tough environment. So I think we will see. I think at the least it'll be available for the older gen, and maybe for the first few years. It's just more of a question of whether they'll have a fully optimized version for the next gen. But I'm really excited to find out.
I mean, you can probably still buy a new version of FIFA from PS2, right?
Yeah, I would assume so. But on previous years, everybody would have been like, the new game better be on the new gen, because everybody wants the new shiny graphics and the new shiny physics. This might be the first generation ever where people are like, please don't release it on the new generation. Like, I want you to release it on the old gen console.
Yeah. And with the new ones being backwards compatible, that lessens the blow a lot as well, doesn't it?
It does.
If it just came out on PS4, well, I can play it on PS5 and it probably will run a bit better. So it's still a new game, and I can probably wait till 2022. But let's see.
That's a great point. I do appreciate that when the developers release like a PS4 version of the game, and then it has like some extra frame rate or something like that. Yeah, exactly. Right. Something small. It doesn't even have to be that much. It's certainly beneficial. Okay, let's move on to NASCAR, which is obviously something I know.
Oh yeah.
The game anyway. I know quite well.
The sport, you're just still
learning. Yeah, but this is a big year for NASCAR. Obviously, it's going to be the first game fully developed by Motorsport Games, and I know this is kind of news to you guys, so you're probably interesting.
Holy.
But obviously, NASCAR Heat 5. Heavily based on NASCAR Heat 4, as you would imagine, same generation, same. It was on Unity, etc. It's all the same kind of stuff, similar to what F1 did with 15, 16, 17, so on and so on. But this is going to be the first one where they said it's not going to be on Unity. I can't say anything beyond that. I do know what engine it's going to be on and stuff, but I can't talk about that just yet.
There's not many successful racing games on Unity.
It's true. It's true. I looked it up one time, and I don't think there was any. In fact, it's a rough engine to do with racing games, and I've specifically spoken to the developers that came in after Monster Games, because they were the ones that were creating the games up to NASCAR Heat 5, and they talked about the challenges of developing a racing game in Unity and stuff. So I know they're super duper excited about this year's game. Yep. I'm super duper excited about this year's game. We don't have any information about old gen, new gen, anything like that.
Right.
But again, what we do know is it's all new from the ground up, using the Motorsport Games team and stuff like that. Do you guys have either of you played the Heat games in the past?
I've played 3, 4, and 5. How about you,
3,
John?
4, and 5?
Yeah, well, I've had a lot of history of doing NASCAR stuff on a mixture like iRacing and stuff. I've played a bit of Heat 5, but not much.
Yeah.
But I've also played the mobile version, which is actually fun. It's really, really good fun. I'm honestly so excited for the next generation of this. I think it'll be really cool to see what differences there are. Hopefully, they'll add this feature where you can turn right sometimes as well. That'd be really good. No, it's a really fun game. The thing about a NASCAR game that makes it as well is that I love the format of NASCAR, where you're in a race and you don't need to necessarily lead from the start. You can be at the back of the pack, you can have a caution, you could be fighting your way through, and it's so much about pit stop strategy. And I feel like with races like that, unlike the likes of Formula One, you really kind of don't know where it's going to go until the last 10 laps. And I think the idea of a newly updated NASCAR game from the ground up. And I just think there's so much potential there for it to be really cool. So I, for one, am very excited about turning left more often.
Nice. You sound very enthused there. Yeah, I'm interested to see how it plays out. The proof is in the pudding, so to speak. So for me, it's all about how they improve the feel and the track and the handling and the performance. And that's what I felt was lacking with Heat 5 personally. And also Heat 5 was very, very similar to Heat 4, but with improved rosters. So there needs to be some bigger changes, but it sounds like from what you've said, there is going to be that.
Yeah, it's going to be certainly fundamentally different. Again, from the ground up, completely different engine, completely different physics. And I know there's a lot of focus on that kind of stuff for this year because you're starting a platform. I hate to bring it up again, but it's like what you said with F1 2015. That was like the start of the new generation, and it was feature light, but physics and graphics heavy. And I'm not involved in the actual development of I was on the community side of things. So now I'm speaking hypothetically, but certainly with a new generation, you would expect it to be exactly like that, kind of lighter on those kind of features, but heavier on the personally, I would much prefer a game where you could go out and just, turn some laps by yourself and have a great time. But maybe doesn't have a ton of stuff going on in it, rather than a game that's chock full of content, but just isn't quite as fun to turn laps in. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but
couldn't put it better myself, really. I think Heat 5 was full of content, but I wanted some more on-track feeling. So, I said the word feeling, which every racing driver does in every interview ever. Don't really
you're not a racing driver, Tom.
Yeah, apparently. Sure.
I agree. Like, obviously, features are a big thing, but you got to give it time to come. And I think they've got to focus on the groundwork, because if you establish good groundwork, everyone can wish for better features and more features, and they can add things in as the years go on. But if the groundwork's not there, you're not going to have a great game, and it's going to be really difficult to come back from that, I think. So if they start well with that and the racing's good, also like online racing, it's important that you're able to race side by side and not feel like you're about to crash into everyone every time you touch the stick on a controller. Like, it needs to feel usable, it needs to feel user friendly, and maybe that's somewhere where NASCAR Heat 5 struggled. So let's see how it is, but I'm feeling good about it.
Yeah, I'm optimistic. Obviously, I've had a slightly more insight than the average person anyway, but certainly I'm very excited for the new NASCAR game. Again, it's the first one from Motorsport Games fully, sort of from the ground up. So yeah, it's going to be a very different sort of experience. Moving on to the next one, we're expecting a Need for Speed game this year?
Yeah. Not confirmed on the date, I don't think, but I think it is. Mm-hmm. It's confirmed that it's Criterion Games developing it. And there was a very, very brief sort of teaser-ish, which was sort of in-engine and not in-game, of two cars. I think one of them was a Porsche, sat still during the presentation about how next-gen is going to improve the loading times and stuff. So there was Burnout Paradise Remastered, released a couple of years ago, and then just at the end of 2020 there was Need for Speed Hot Pursuit Remastered. They're both Criterion Games, if that makes sense, and they're both excellent. So the hope is something like that, please, but with shiny 4K graphics. That would be nice.
That would be cool.
Yeah, I think for me, that era of Need for Speed, the Criterion ones were really good, and maybe in the latter years it's sort of tailed off. I don't know if you're going to agree or disagree with that, Justin.
I haven't played a Need for Speed game in years, but from the outside looking in, it seemed to me like a game that's more about customizing than it is about actual driving.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'd go with that.
It's heavy on the custom. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, like, I'm a similar that I've not been playing it too much recently, but I did give one of the games a go a few years ago, which was just Need for Speed, and I actually really enjoyed that. That was probably my peak sim racing game phase, where I was avoiding a lot of the arcade style stuff, and I really enjoyed that game. It was good fun. It obviously doesn't, with Need for Speed for people like my age, it's a lot of nostalgia. The games from when you grew up with, and I'm sure we'll talk about that in another podcast. But I'm definitely keen to see what it's like on next gen, because I think a big part of Need for Speed is the aesthetics and the visual elements of it. So yeah, let's wait and see. I think that'll be a good one as well. But time will tell.
Big selling franchise, can't be underestimated.
Yeah, it's sort of one of those genre-defining, genre-breaking. People that aren't into racing games will buy a Need for Speed game just because they grew up on it, or because they know the company that it's from, or whatever it might be. But I mean, personally, I would like it to work on a wheel better, because and this is from a massive fan of the Forza Horizon series. I think Horizon has found that nice balance between sim and arcade. F1 is a little bit more leaning towards sim than arcade, compared to like Forza Horizon, I would say. But I would like to see just a little bit better physics from a Need for Speed. Just a little bit. I'm not asking for anything too crazy. If it was like Forza Horizon, then it would be a genuine competitor for me specifically. I just know I've watched videos of Need for Speed games, recent Need for Speed games from the last, half decade or so, and I see a lot of drifting to go faster. You know what I mean? And it's like, look, you can have the drifting, I don't mind, and even if it's the same speed, that's fine. But it's like Mario Kart. It's closer to Mario Kart than it is to Forza, where like you half expect during the drift for the wheels to start glowing blue and then for you to shoot out the exit of the corner with a boost. Like, what is that? I just want I want it to be somewhat based in reality.
I don't know. With Need for Speed, I'm not sure I fully agree. But saying so, I'm kind of in a knot with myself because part of me feels like this game needs to be accessible for everyone. It needs to be for someone who has no idea about cars. They want to be able to see what it's like to drift. Okay, you don't actually drive the car with a controller like you would and make it drift in the same way, but it's super satisfying that it doesn't take much effort to start drifting around all the corners. But then I think about it again, and Need for Speed is almost marketed as a kind of, it's not really a kids game, is it? It's a lot more, it's I guess it's more teenage to adult, and it's got a lot of kind of adult themes to it. And it feels like they're almost aiming for a mature audience, but then the way the physics are set kind of suits younger audience as well, at least as well as less experienced. So yeah, I'm tying myself in knots of whether I agree with you or not. It's a bit of both.
Basically, I think what we're saying is, who would want to be Criterion Games right now, trying to get the right balance of accessibility and pleasing Justin. So fingers crossed to them. but does anyone care about the story in the Need for Speed games? A lot of the, I think. You said, Justin, like, it's a lot about customization, and it really is. There's lots of YouTubers out there who just do customization mods for Need for Speed each week, and, look at my new bull bar or exhaust. But also, the games have gone a lot more story-based of late. I think the one you've just played, John, has, like, Ken Block in there, doesn't it? I just played that recently Magnus as well. And Magnus Walker. The one after that was all about trying to do these stunts and a bit of a heist thing going on. And so... do you think the Criterion Games one would have a big story in, or would it be more pared back like a Burnout Paradise, where there's basically not really one?
I would hope for a story, but I would hope for a story that focuses more on the actual writing. You know what I mean? I would prefer that they focus on the quality of the story rather than the famousness of the people in it and that sort of thing. You know what I mean? I love a good story. I love TV, movies. I love RPGs. I love games with some story in them. What I don't like is Forza Horizon story stuff, like the unskippable cutscenes with people's mouths who don't move and the cameras behind and stuff. Yeah. It's so half-assed that can I say that on this podcast? But yeah, it's so bad. And I love Forza Horizon, but the story and the cutscenes are garbage. They are the worst thing in gaming, if you ask me. They're just so bad. I like what Need for Speed is attempting, but sometimes it's just really cringy, and it seems like I'm watching a low budget TV show that's made for tweens and stuff like that. Like, they're using like lingo that I don't even think they understand. You know what I mean? Like it's really like cringy. That's kind of rap. Yeah, exactly. Like I would love if they would rather put that money into hiring somebody who knows how to write a good story. And that's really going to captivate me.
That's kind of comes back to what I was saying though as well, Justin, where I feel like the stories are written in a way that's cringy and feels very young and is aimed at very young people. But then also the kind of theme of it feels like it's a bit more mature and kind of not suitable for. Right. It's a really weird kind of balance. And when I was playing, I think I was probably like 18 when I played that game, and for me it felt really childish, but then also like kind of a bit dodgy at the same time. It was just a weird balance. So I agree with you. Write the script well.
Yeah, no, but what you said about like being mature but aimed for young people, like the Need for Speed from a couple of years ago that we've both recently played, right? Has like these adults, and you meet up with them in the cutscenes, and they're in a bar and stuff, and they're having a party, but they're having this party, and they're all just drinking energy drinks. They're not drinking alcohol. And it's just like, this is all about weird. Yeah, the police after. Yeah, it's bizarre. Yeah,
you don't like to get together with your friends and just chug a bunch of caffeine?
Yeah, with some music and some lights.
Right. Just vibing. Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to the gameplay.
Right. I have high hopes for it, but low expectations is essentially my feelings with Need for Speed. But I mean, I would love to enjoy it just as a game to play on controller. I would love for it to be usable and playable and fun on a wheel and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, as long as it's good on controller, exactly. As long as it's good on controller and stuff like that, I think it could be really good.
I've got an alternative theory, not for 2021, but for 2022 or 3, and that is: has anyone played Fast and Furious Crossroads?
No, I can't say I have.
Absolutely terrible. I've finished it for my sins. And in there are actual likenesses of like Vin Diesel. He's in there and lending the voice. And they've tried to make it very cinematic and ultimately failed. And I wouldn't like to speculate on why or how that happened, but unfortunately it's a turgid mess. But Slightly Mad Studios did the Fast and Furious Crossroads game. They were recently bought by Codemasters. Codemasters has recently been bought by EA. So could Need for Speed and Fast and Furious combine in some weird kind of thing, even if it's just DLC? Because there was a Need for Speed film, and it was trying to be like Fast and Furious. I don't know. I've got half an idea there.
I forgot about that movie.
Yeah, right. Aaron Paul was in it.
About it. Yeah. I completely forgot about that. Yeah, right. I would prefer if like Need for Speed and Fast and Furious got some Project Cars physics, or something like that. That's what I would rather see personally.
Right.
I don't know about you, John.
I see where you're coming from, but I think even Project Cars 2 is probably for me too far in the balance towards sim. It's obviously going to be better on a wheel, but I think Need for Speed for me always needs to retain the ability for a 10 or 11-year-old to pick it up. And I don't even know if they're allowed to play it if you're 10 or 11, but it feels like that. To be able to play the game with a controller and be able to drift everywhere. Like if they had like maybe a couple of different routes that they went down, maybe there wasn't like if maybe the Need for Speed type game was more arcadey, and then the Fast and Furious game had the kind of Project Cars 2 physics with a Need for Speed style story, then I'd be up for that. There's maybe some room for it, but yeah, for me it's got to stay as fully accessible, because that's one of the joys about that game is anyone can play it.
Interesting. I think it's fascinating that Need for Speed has us the most divided out of everything.
Yeah. Who would have thought that? I thought that would have been F1 for
sure. We've also got, and this is another one that I don't follow too closely. I don't have a Sony console, but Gran Turismo 7 coming out in 2021. Is that right? You guys are hyped.
Well, I'm hyped. I'm so hyped. Are you, John?
Yeah. Oh, I'm more than hyped, Tom. Yeah, sorry, Justin. I think that Gran Turismo 7, obviously, for me, growing up, Gran Turismo was the game for, because it was one of the first real crosses between sim and racing. And when I was a kid, it was really, really enjoyable because of the depth of it. Gran Turismo 3, Gran Turismo 4, for me, what made it was the career mode, right? The GT story mode. And
progression.
For me, it's just gone so far downhill with the most recent couple of titles. I think Gran Turismo 5, again for another podcast, underrated, but GT Sport and GT6 lost a little bit of magic. And I feel like with GT7, they're bringing back GT mode. For that reason, I am very, very excited for it, and I just so hope they can recapture some of the magic from GT2, 3, and 4.
I've got so many thoughts right now, and I really can't decide where to begin. I'm going to start with let's hope it comes out this year. But if it doesn't, it's not the end of the world. I'm okay with that. Let's make
zero surprise.
Good. Yeah. So I think why we've included it here and while we're talking about it in a 2021 preview is that during the PlayStation 5 reveal stream, there was a trailer for GT7, and it did look like there was gameplay in there. It wasn't like a pre-rendered thing. It was cockpit cam, someone driving the game, and you're like, oh, so maybe it's nearly ready? And then there was some leak about some Japanese advert where it said in the small print, early 2021, which I think was maybe a typo or something. I'm not going to get too excited about that. I think we would have heard a lot more about it at this point if it was. So, earliest Christmas 2021, I would really like that. But if it's going into next year, that's fine. And then the second point was, I like Gran Turismo Sport. And I know it's not got the career and the progression, and it has got career races, it has got license tests, but they're not that great. They weren't that. Yeah, exactly. They're not that good. They weren't there at the start. You've had to wait a couple of years before there's a lot of them there. But it really innovated in the online esports space, especially for console players. It was accessible. It puts you into these ranked races that are really matching your skill level. And so, if you combine the online innovation with the classic GT single player, that should be the perfect marriage. And that's why I'm excited for GT7.
Yeah, I agree with that, Tom. I think the online of GT Sport was really good, but for me, what made the Gran Turismo series so good in the first place was the offline stuff. So I play Gran Turismo for the offline, not the online. And then when they missed that, I kind of was put off it. But I would not deny for a second that GT Sport is really accessible as an online platform. So I feel like a combination of the two, which is what I think this is going to be,
I hope
will be great.
Yeah, and I just think I would temper it slightly from my side that the single player AI in other games has moved on much more than Polyphony Digital's, unfortunately. So if they're going to have this big single player weight to the game, which the trailer is all about the single player stuff, it even shows you like the menus, then I just hope there's some AI improvements there. Or if there isn't, just some new way of racing to get around that. You start at the back each time, or I don't know, some other invention. But still so excited, but I just don't want to get too carried away and it'd be a bit of a letdown. So I can't deny, though, that it's a massive series. Over 80 million Gran Turismo games sold, so it's very, very important. So just take your time with it, please.
I think last I checked, still the highest selling racing game of all time is one of the Gran Turismos. If you ignore Mario Kart, if you ignore Mario Kart, it's like the first 4 slots are all Mario Kart top selling racing games. But then after that, it's 2 Gran Turismos, and there's a good reason for that. And I was the same way, John. I grew up with Gran Turismo. I think Gran Turismo 1. I rented for my birthday one year. When I rented the console. So I didn't have a PlayStation yet. So my parents rented a PlayStation console and rented Gran Turismo for my birthday. And then, all my friends came over. It was like for my 11th birthday or something silly like that. I was very, very young. And all my friends came over and we played Gran Turismo all day and all night. And it was like a sleepover thing. And we went to bed at 3 a.m. or something crazy like that. And we just played it constantly and just passing the controller too, because we only had the one controller. We couldn't even race each other. And we just played nonstop. And I do miss and I think that's the reason that I fell in love with Forza Horizon, because it's sort of like the new Gran Turismo. It's one of those games where you spend more time not racing than you do racing. You spend more time in the menus and tuning and upgrading and spending money and doing wheel spins and all of that sort of stuff. And it's that kind of RPG element that you just don't get in other racing games. And it's actually something that's been missing up until Horizon came to PC with the third one, because it wasn't even available on PC for 1 and 2. Up until Forza Horizon 3 came out on PC a few years ago, you couldn't get that kind of single-player racing experience on a PC. It just didn't exist. Assetto Corsa doesn't have upgrading and money and all of that kind of stuff. None of these PC games do. I mean, iRacing does, but that's from your actual wallet. That's not digital money you're spending. That is real dollars that you earned at work. So, I am also very excited. I would love if it was on PC. And I don't understand Sony's. I know, and I don't understand that. Microsoft has embraced, and maybe it's because they make Windows, but Microsoft has embraced that, console and PC gamers are 2 completely separate things. Never the 2 shall meet, that kind of stuff. And they've actually given them the ability to race against each other. You can hop on Forza Horizon on a PC or an Xbox. You could race against your friend on PC or Xbox and so on and so forth. I would love it if Sony would do that. And it wouldn't cannibalize any of their market. I really don't think.
Oh, I mean, I think it would.
You think it would? Really?
Because Microsoft's different, because they're getting revenue from you having a Windows device and a PC.
Right.
Sony doesn't have that opportunity ever. So
it's true.
And also, I don't think Microsoft's end game is to actually make money by selling Xboxes. I think that's been and gone. I know they've invested in a new one.
Developer.
So if you've got a PC, there's literally no reason why you'd have an Xbox, because all the games are on there. But to play all these amazing games on PlayStation, you have to have a PlayStation. And I also think in the future it might change, because Microsoft's made some big acquisitions. And I know we're going off rails here, but there are so many Sony exclusive games, way more than Microsoft has got. So there's much more incentive for Sony and Nintendo, let's be real, to keep their IP to their. So I don't think you'll ever see Mario on PC either, for example.
Sadly,
but I think Microsoft has less to lose by doing this platform sharing. Yeah. So
well, I mean, that's what happened with Sega. They turned from a console maker into just a video, just a video game
only
maker.
Because Dreamcast failed, right? Whereas PlayStation and Switch are extremely profitable and successful.
Yes.
So
PlayStation's still the number one selling console worldwide, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I can understand that, but again, I don't like gaming in front of a TV anymore. I like sitting upright, especially with a racing game. Like it's hard to be like just slouched back, chilling and racing like this. You're like attack position when you're in a racing game. So I don't know. I've just always preferred PC for that kind of stuff, and for wheel and everything. The different wheels that are available and whatnot. So.
Yeah.
Do we want to jump into our top picks here? I think we were going to do John first. The game that you're most looking forward to for 2021, racing game that you're most looking forward to.
Well, this is a bit of a curveball and it hasn't been mentioned yet, but I'm really excited to see what happens with the new test drive game that's going to be coming out soon. Because we've heard that there's going to be a new test drive released. We don't know too much about it yet. It's I guess it's one of those ones where I don't know if we can fully trust when it's going to be launched because obviously everything that's going on. But I remember playing the original test drives, and for me it was kind of an equivalent to Forza in that it's open world. It's kind of like, it was almost like a Gran Turismo game, not quite as good as Gran Turismo, but an old Gran Turismo game where instead of clicking on the menu at what dealership you want to go to and spend the money, you drive to the dealership, you walk around the showroom, pick a car to test, and then if you desire it, you work up the money and you buy the car. And I just feel like that kind of concept with an open world map and you driving to different dealerships, discovering the map as you go, was such a cool feature. The racing I wasn't even bothered about. Like the racing was an inconvenience to get me money to go and drive around the town in a really cool convertible car, and you could upgrade stuff. And I just think, like finding the dealerships was such a big thing because you didn't tell you where they all were. So I'm rambling on because the original test drive was a lot of fun for me and it needs a mention. But because of how good that was, I am very much looking forward to this next one. I mean, the second one was a bit disappointing, but I think there's a lot of potential for this to be really cool because they've had such a long time to be, looking at it.
I remember playing there's a PSP version as well, wasn't there? No, that was quite good. But I've interrupted Justin, so
no, I was just going to say it's a series I don't know as well as other series. I have played test drives. I remember I played one on PC where you could teleport from one car to another. Was that Test Drive Unlimited? You could hit spacebar and then you could zoom as a spirit or something into a different car.
Are you sure you want to destroy all humans?
I have no idea. I don't. It was definitely a test drive game. I remember that. I also remember playing a test drive game for PS1 or PS2 or something like that. But I agree with you, John. I do love the open world and just the uniqueness of it. It's unlike any other racing game, which is great.
Absolutely agree. And you can find little hidden parts. Like there was runways you could try and jump over something to break into, or you could drop in there in the map. There's all sorts of little really clever hidden bits, and it made it, I guess the game had so much longevity because you never ever discovered everything. You're always working towards the next thing. The only thing that let it down, funnily enough, was for me the racing in it. It just wasn't that fun for whatever reason.
No.
And
it was like an exploration game, wasn't it?
Yeah, and that's what I'd like to see more of because I think we've been Forza Horizon's doing a good job of that kind of aspect, so it would be just good to see something else come along, and I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I think it's Kiloton, KT Games, let's say, is developing it, and so I think they're going to use the game engine from the WRC games. So it'd be really interesting to see how that's utilized. I'm not sure it's going to work with supercars.
Yeah, okay.
Weird choice. Yeah, weird choice. And when they last reinvigorated the series, which was V-Rally, and also Flat Out, they both did those in the last 5 or 6 years. They were both a bit of a flop. So let's hope with this one, when they bring it back, it's back to being a good game again. So fingers crossed for that. But yeah.
And John, what do you hope for when it comes to the game itself? Are you hoping for something quite arcadey or something that's very controller focused, something you can use a wheel on?
I don't necessarily mind. I think as long as it's fun to drive, I'm perfectly happy with a game that's not wheel friendly if the controller feels satisfying to drive, and if it feels like it. Dirt 3, for example, that that game I went back and played on a controller, and it didn't need a wheel because it was so much fun on a controller anyway, and it was usable. So for me, it's not necessarily about which it's aimed at. It's more about the quality of whatever it produces. If it's fun on a controller, that's it. It's not the kind of game that's going to be a sim. It's not designed to be for direct drive wheels and fancy. I mean, it would be amazing if it drove like that as well, but I don't think we can expect that. And I think it needs to be accessible for people. So I'm fully aware of that, and I think it's the kind of game that fans of cars would enjoy rather than just fans of racing. Therefore, I kind of want them to strike a good balance where it feels nice on the controller, and if you can do wheel support, then brilliant.
Yeah,
nice.
And Tom, which game were you looking forward to?
It's Gran Turismo 7, of course. But aside from that, I think I'm looking forward to a couple of off-road games. I really like in real life watching the Dakar Rally, which just happened in January this year, and I can't begin to understand how difficult that must be to develop, like a 2-week-long rally across thousands of kilometers. But I would love to see that done well. There was one in 2018, Dakar 18, funnily enough, is what it was called, and it wasn't that great. Unfortunately, lots of mainly the handling of the vehicles was fairly poor, in my opinion, and the co-driver calls were often mistimed, and it was really, you'd get lost in the game very often, which is never a good thing. Yeah, well, it is a lot of excuses. Yeah, I was struggling with it, but I did mercifully power through to the end, but it was deeply flawed. And so the same developers actually not gone from I think it was initially going to be like a yearly release, but they've had a couple of years off, which is good. So it'll be Dakar 21. Also, in the meantime, they've been purchased by the people who also own the Snow and Mud Runner games. So I'm hoping they use that physics engine to better replicate sand and rough terrain, perhaps. And so that for me gives promise. But they might not do that, and it might not work well.
Have you played Spin Tires, Mud Runner, those whatever those games?
I haven't played Snow Runner enough. They're good games.
Okay. I haven't gotten into it, and it's something I've always found kind of interesting. It seems like it's really good for streaming because you're going nice and slow. You could read chat, stuff like that. It's all kind of low speed. The challenge isn't in the quick reaction times or anything like that. So,
it's not racing in any way, really.
Right, but it's got really, from what I've seen, it's got great physics as you described. Like the sinking in and stuff like that.
Right, so that could apply great to the sand dunes, I think. But whether or not they use it, I don't know. But I hope so. And then the other one, just quickly, is going to be, it's not been announced yet, but like F1 and MotoGP, WRC 10, I guess they would call it. I feel last year, many years in the doldrums, but they got the handling right at last. So it'll be interesting to see where they go from there and improving it. But that developer's only got a couple of years left of the license. But I'm still looking forward to another WRC game.
Nice. Yeah, for me, the game that I'm hopeful for this year is it's hope, because it hasn't been confirmed, and that's Forza Horizon 5. There's been rumors that that Playground Games has finished Horizon 5 before Turn 10 has finished Motorsport 8. Yep, 8. I think is the one we're on now. 7.
Oh no, 8. So, right. It's just got no number, and it's the 8th one. I do apologize.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The current one is 7. The new one would be 8. But but I don't think they're going to release both in the same year. And the last one to come out was Motorsport, actually, in 2019. Yeah, Motorsport came out in 2019. Motorsport 7, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, Forza Horizon 5 is essentially the racing game I'm just most excited about. Whether or not it's coming out in 2021 is a huge question mark, but it's the next racing game that I'm really excited about. I've fallen in love with Forza Horizon when I got Horizon 3 on PC. It is, for me, the perfect game. There's just something about it, you can't really describe why you love your favorite food, why you love your significant other, things like that. It's hard to put words to. And with Forza Horizon, that's how I feel. I love it. I love it so much. It just releases those chemicals in my brain that just makes me super duper happy when I play it. And it's on a wheel, it's on a controller. It's it doesn't matter how I play it, whether it's against the AI, whether it's with friends. And I'm really hopeful for Horizon 5. It's I would assume going to be new gen. I think they are developing it for the next generation of consoles, especially because it's a first party game. It's coming from Microsoft, essentially. They're the publishers on it. So, they're going to be pushing quite hard, I would assume, to utilize the new power of the Series X and use it as almost like a test bed or a platform to show off how good that console is. So I imagine there's going to be a lot of working between Playground Games, Turn 10, Microsoft Studios, and so on, just to get it absolutely perfect. And I'm really, really optimistic about it. I thought 4 was even better than 3. There's some really weird, stupid problems with Forza Horizon 4. Like, if you turn on the streamer audio mode, which disables the copyright music, exactly, it forgets that setting every time you launch the game. Every single time I launch the game, I have to go in and enable streamer mode. The cutscenes are unskippable, even though I've seen it a bunch of times. Like, there's really basic things with the Forza Horizon world that it's like, I don't know how they've missed this. Surely there are people on their forums complaining almost daily about this kind of stuff, I would assume. I'm not one of them, though. I don't have time for that. So my hope it's already like perfect for me anyway, when it comes to like physics and graphics and all of that kind of stuff. I think it's exactly where it needs to be. They just need to, polish it, make it so it's a little bit more user friendly. Have you guys played any Horizon games?
I've just played 4.
Okay. On PC or console?
PC.
Oh, okay. And John?
Yeah, I was going to say it's something I haven't, but listening to your endorphin booster that you've gone on about here, I think I'm going to have to give it a go. Because, I mean, the thing is, I've told you before, like, I love the early Gran Turismo games, and I love the idea of what you said earlier about Forza kind of taking that mantle over recently. Makes me very excited, and I do want to play it. I think the issue for me was I was kind of more focused on the sim stuff when Horizon was coming big, and I didn't have as much time for those kind of games. Yeah. So I think it's definitely something I'm going to need to look in for, and especially if they bring out something next gen, I think that'd be really cool. So
I will say,
I'm all for it. I loved listening to your passion about it. I mean, that gets me excited to try it out. So I appreciate that.
It is faster than Gran Turismo. Like the to go from broke to having a Ferrari is a much shorter time compared to what you would expect from the old school Gran Turismo 2, 3, 4. You're spending several races, several championships driving like, a stock Honda Civic or something like that.
It's whereas so with Forza, like a Skyline, like driving a road Skyline for the first time is a big moment.
I would say Horizon, they could stand to tone it down a little. Give me a little bit less money early on and let me work for it a little bit more.
I'm going to completely rain on your parade now, Justin. I'm sorry. Are you ready? I hope you'll speak to me again after this. I don't think there's a cat in hell's chance that Forza Horizon 5 is coming out this year. And I'll tell you why. Okay. Because they've revealed the next Forza Motorsport. And I know they're different games. Forza Motorsport is, I know we're talking about Gran Turismo and stuff there, but for me, Forza Motorsport is what competes with Gran Turismo. Horizon has the tuning up aspect, but they're very, very different games.
Definitely.
So I wouldn't, if I was Microsoft PR department, why would I announce this game that's called Forza and release another game that's called Forza before it? Because I know we know the difference between Motorsport and Horizon, but does the consumer who's looking for a Christmas gift in the game shop, if such things exist post-COVID, or on Amazon or whatever, know for their niece or nephew which is the right Forza game for them? Because they both got Forza, they both start with the name Forza, and they've already announced Forza Motorsport. So I think even if it's finished development, that won't come out until this Motorsport one has come out first. And the trailer for the Forza Motorsport was in-engine, but it wasn't gameplay, which suggests to me that that's perhaps further away than they would like or anticipate. So maybe that's the one that comes out this year. And if that doesn't, it might not come out to 2022, and then your Horizon 5 might not come out till 2023. So
dear God,
that's my theory.
Don't do that. I'm
sorry, but also with Horizon 4, they've just did a next gen update for it. They're still doing DLC. That also suggests to me that they're in it for the long haul, and that's not dried up. You look at Forza Motorsport 7, there are no updates or content for it anymore. So it makes sense again that that's the next one that's going to be replaced. And
I'd say
slip another opinion in there. I think the Forza Motorsport series has been struggling for a few years and has fallen behind the curve.
That's exactly what I was about to add. I was going to say Motorsport needs love more than Horizon does.
Yeah. Absolutely. For me,
it's
7
struggling.
is really boring.
I bought 7. I played it for 2 or 3 hours, and I was like, nope, not for me.
I think they're just on this every 2 years. They've got to do it, haven't they? They've got to release one every 2 years, and sometimes you need a break to refresh it and be more creative with your thinking. And it got to the point where it was just like, this year's Forza Motorsport has more cars, and then the next one came out, it's got more cars, and then it's almost got more. I'd rather have quality over quantity at this point.
Yeah. And Horizon has done that as well too. The number of cars in Horizon is like over 500, 600. I don't even know. It's an absolutely insane number. Yeah. Which I mean,
over a long period of time though, right?
Right.
Yes, it's been exactly. 2-3 years. So that's fine.
Launched with that many.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you might be right about that. I just hope that it's not 2020.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I've been a realist.
The endorphin level is just going back down.
I just can't see them releasing 2 Forza games in the same year, and I can't see them releasing this before that. So
I would assume, so if I'm Microsoft, I would say to the Motorsport team, release your game this year, or we're releasing Horizon. Release it this year, finished, or we're releasing Horizon. Because if the rumors are true and the Horizon team says, look, our game is done, we're ready to go, then why would you not? Because first of all, even though they have announced it, as you mentioned, the average consumer hasn't seen that announcement. You know what I mean? That's not a commercial that's running during Super Bowl.
That's true.
It's not in the newspaper or anything like that. So the average person doesn't know that Motorsport 8 has been announced and stuff like that. So it's not too late for them to turn around. I think they're going to want to release a Forza game this year. And if Motorsport can't be that game, Horizon is the only other option.
Yeah, I think releasing it this year though, without announcing it at this point, is going to be that's a bold call.
That would be really weird. I think Motorsport
I feel like we should have a bet off there.
In 22. I think that's more likely.
The substitute striker is ready to get on the pitch because the striker is really underperforming, and they really got to score soon. Because if not, they're not going to get another say in it.
Yeah.
Totally. I get all those references.
Oh yeah.
Sorry.
That can apply to your football and our type of football, if that makes sense. Anyway.
To be honest, I don't even watch American football.
There's an ocean between top shoulder and Justin's arm right now.
Cool. So I think that covers it. Do we want to do any quick predictions just before we wrap up? Do we want to give any predictions of like what game we think is going to be amazing or which one we think is going to be absolute crap?
I definitely. I'm gonna say Gran Turismo 7, and I'm gonna please pray that they back me up on this. But it's gonna be a great game. I don't know, to be honest. I'm with you. I'm not sure it's gonna be a 2021 game, but if it is, I think it's gonna be brilliant. And if it's in 2022, I will happily wait. That's what's gonna be good for me. I'm not sure what's gonna be bad, but I really hope GT7 is good.
Well, my prediction was just what we covered already. That Justin's going to be very, very sad, and there won't be a Forza game this year.
Oh, BeamNG Career Mode. That needs to shout. BeamNG Career Mode is going to be the game of 2021.
My prediction was going to be that at least relatively, based on expectations, I think NASCAR 21 is going to be the surprise of the year, or whatever they end up calling it. But NASCAR's 2021 video game, I think, is going to be the real surprise of the year, just basing off people's expectations and stuff like that. Right. So,
interesting.
But that's also optimism and hope, fingers crossed, just like you with Gran Turismo and stuff. So
episode in a year's time, and we'll see how bad we were. That's what we'll do.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll have to do a recap this 12 months time. Great idea. All right, nice.
Well, I think that's a good place to wrap it up. That's it for this week's Traxion podcast episode. Thank you for listening and watching. If you like what you heard, please subscribe via your favorite podcast service, or like and subscribe if you watched on YouTube. Don't forget to join us on social media at TractionGG on most platforms, and visit traxion.gg for daily racing game updates. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
See ya.